What's up, fam? Coach Cam. Today's video, we're going to be discussing genetics, the role of genetics in muscle growth, bodybuilding, and how you look, and the difficulty it is to get to certain levels of bodybuilding, of muscle growth, of fat loss, right? So genetics determines so many factors, such as your starting point, right? We all have seen people's transformations on the internet and people that have started with very little muscle mass, and then they start training and boom, they blow up, right? Within the first few years, they're still a teenager, right? And that is insane. And that's only possible if they have good muscle building genetics. Some people have a terrible starting point, very low levels of muscle mass in their teenage years, and then they blow up quickly when they start training hard. Other people are different. Other people have more muscle mass before training in those teenage years, just playing sports and doing random stuff. And then when they start training, they get even bigger, right? And a lot of people that fit that category, we used to think, oh, they have more type 2 muscle fibers. Like, no, that's not really the case. Your whole body is essentially 50-50 type 1, type 2. There's some, nuance there, but if for broad general purposes, we're going to say you basically have half and half. And it's just different genetics, bro. Different muscle belly insertions, right? So if you have short tendons on your glutes, you're going to have these long glutes, and you can fill that out with muscle, right? They may never pop out, though, if somebody has short tendons, or if someone has long tendons and a short muscle belly, then the glutes will pop out like huge, right? But they're not that big overall. They just stick out more. It's the same thing with muscle bellies and tendons and insertions across your whole body. So take your chest. Some people, their chest doesn't actually start in the center of their sternum. It's like way out here, and they have this gap, right, in their chest muscles. They can never fill that in, right? They have a smaller muscle belly, and therefore it's only going to get so big. I think it was Mike Menzer who said this: a muscle's never going to become wider than it is long. So its length, it's never going to become protruding like enormously off the charts when it's only this wide, right? So if you want good insertions, you need good genetics. You need parents that can give you DNA that insert your chest muscle way over here and originate, deeper into your sternum so that you can have a fuller chest and they can like touch, you know what I'm saying? Same thing with biceps. There's guys with huge arms that have been training for 10 years, and there's guys that train for 10 years and don't have huge arms. Their arms fit their physique, like they match their physique, but they're not like insane. Some guys have insane arms. Do the guys with insane arms know way more about arm training than the guys who don't? No. We're all doing the same exercises. We're all training multiple days a week. Like, there's not really a difference. We're all training to failure, even though some experts still make social media posts. Dude, some scientists are still making social media posts saying, oh, you don't have to train to failure. Bro, shut up. Get that off of here. How can you still make that post? Like, training hard gets you more stimulus for more result, period. If you train to failure but do way too many sets, then yeah, you overtrained the stimulus. You blunted it, you ruined it. Too much of a good thing, you can ruin it, right? That's what you do, and that's what a lot of research studies do, and that's why they have weird results, and you can't figure out how many sets you're supposed to do, because you had some responders that responded well to the high volume somehow. They got through it. And then everyone else who's not a high volume responder, they saw very little muscle growth. Some regressed, some like lost muscle. You ever see that? It's because they had too much training. These studies are crazy if you actually read them. It's always like 3 to 4 sets of 12 reps to failure, everything. 3 times a week, they're hitting the same exercises. Like, bro, nobody does that in the real world. Like, that's way too much. But I digress. if your muscle insertions just kind of suck, you might be unhappy with yourself and always striving to do something new. And honestly, I feel like I fall into this category where I, for the last like 10 years off and on in total, have investigated exercise, whether it was running, body weight exercise, adding weights in, doing weighted body weight exercises, bodybuilding routines. I've trained 5-6 days a week for a couple years. I'm down to training like 2 to 3 days a week at the most. I've done it all, and none of it made it like that big of a difference to me. I slowly improved over time, but none of it was like a game changer to me. So just be careful with information like that, thinking that somebody else with a freaky body part knows more than everyone else. It's not true, right? And yeah, like I said, I'm just a prime example of this. And I know haters are going to come in the comments and say, well, your training sucks and that's why you're not big. And, if you did way more volume and did more lengthened partials, it's like, dude, that's not how this works, bro. It's training hard to failure, progressive overload. Literally. Ask any big natural lifter the question, what are the key components to getting big? They're going to tell you those two, because that's what matters. Have a good exercise selection. Do you need to keep changing your exercises and have like a humongous variety? No, not really. I have decent lats. That's probably my best body part, is my lats. Did I work on pull-ups for years? Yes. If I had a picture, I would show you my back before I did any pull-ups when I was like 16 or 17. And I remember looking in a mirror in my mom's bathroom, and I had a second mirror that I could see my back, and I was like, my back looks like I'm 12 years old. And I was like 17. And I was like, this doesn't look right. Like, I have a chest, I have abs because I was a runner. We did push-ups and stuff, a bunch of ab workouts. But I didn't have back muscles at all. And I had a home gym pull-up bar that I would throw over the door frame. Everyone had one of those, right? And my senior year, I started doing pull-ups like 3 times a week. And sure enough, my back grew from that and ended up being one of my favorite kind of muscles to train. But before I did anything, it was terrible. So you can have, that's a prime example, right? A muscle group where the genetics were good, but the stimulus was nothing before I trained. Anyone can pull up pictures of themselves before they trained and look tiny, right? If you go back far enough, you're going to find some where you were skinny. Everyone was skinny or fat. Right? Some people were overweight and obese when they were 10, 11, 12 years old. So everyone has a backstory and a background, but what I'm trying to point out here is that your genetics determine the end goal, right? Determine if you can have freaky arms or not, right? If you can have freaky glutes, if you can have quads like Tom Platz. Like, why does Tom Platz in his prime have quads that like nobody else can match? Because it was a freaky body part for him. We have all the same exercises, but it just doesn't stimulate the way it did for him, right? For his body. And that's obviously what PEDs do, which muddies this whole conversation, right? Because performance enhancing drugs enhance recovery. They enhance the stimulus, and they help you grow with worse training. They help you grow with too much training. And so when you look back in the 80s, 90s, it's like, oh, well, everyone was on drugs, so how can you say that this bodybuilder was smarter than the other or whatever? But it's like, who did the least training and got the best results, right? Because that person, if we're saying we're going to drive from New York to Florida, and I drive the shortest possible distance and I get there sooner, and everyone else is taking long back roads to finally eventually get there, like, who had the better route? Like, who, if it was a race to get there, the guy who had the straightest route won. So I think personally it's very revealing when a bodybuilder or someone who has a lot of muscle reveals that they don't have a high volume training plan, mostly because it's just high volume that came before them, right? Reg Park, Arnold, the whole story. So high volume is more old school than low volume. but low volume gets the job done with less time in the gym, which tells you that the stimulus is more potent, right? So I don't think you should be copying everyone's routine just because they have a standout body part, or maybe their whole body is muscle to the gills, right? It's not the exercises that are going to make your physique insane. Some guys on the internet, some influencers, they're just lean. They're just lean. They're really lean. And if you get good lighting, you can look huge. But you scroll their page enough. I do this, and I'm sure you guys do this too. Scroll their pages and try to find like regular lighting or videos or pictures where they're not even flexing. And you're like, bro doesn't even lift. Because that's how I feel. And that's how a lot of us feel when we're scrolling the internet. We're like, I feel like I don't even lift. These guys lift. They look insane. But the thing I found too, especially now that I've been dieting, is like, I can look insane too. There are times when I wake up in the morning, flex my abs in the bathroom mirror, and I'm like, wow. Or, the lighting's like coming in through the window at like 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and like it looks crazy, right? But those guys, they have a camera out right when those like specific moments hit, and then they're able to capture it and post it, right? Whereas regular people like you and I, we're not sitting there waiting for those perfectly timed moments. And instead, we need to understand that we are fit, that we are part of the top 1%, because we train hard and we have a lot of muscle. It's just a matter of, do you want to cut the fat down or not, right? So a lot of guys' transformations, they have a lot of body fat, but they have a ton of muscle too. And they cut down, they look insane. So there's definitely that point when you're cutting where you just kind of don't look amazing. Like, you don't feel big anymore. You don't look big anymore to your naked eye. But you have to take your pictures and your videos after your workout with a pump, right? You have to be carbing up for your workouts, have an awesome workout, and then take the pictures or videos after that. If you just even want to see yourself in the same light as some of these other guys. Because if you just walk past mirrors, never flex, you're just going to see some sloppy dude, like some skinny, small, sloppy guy, which is exactly what I see if I'm not actually flexing anything. And that's what everyone else sees too when they're not flexing too. But when you flex, you completely change your physique. I have some old pictures I took probably about 5-6 years ago of me in a bathroom without my shirt on, and it was literally a 10-second difference. And one video, I just pushed my stomach out, didn't flex anything. And the next one, I flexed everything I possibly could, especially the abs, and it looked like a transformation you would see on the internet. That's just how deceiving it is, because when you flex a muscle, it actually pops out, right? But all that comes back to your genetics. I actually have really symmetrical abs. Nobody on here has seen my abs because I don't post them, but I have very symmetrical, like perfect abs, I'll say. My twin brother, his abs are not like that. His abs are blocky kind of, and they're just kind of offset. They're not like perfectly connected 2 by 2, So that's just genetics again. You can't change it. But what we can do is push our bodies hard. What we can do is build muscle. And I don't care if your genetics are terrible or if you have superhero elite level genetics, it's going to change your life and change your entire physique and appearance if you choose to build muscle. If you choose to pick up weights, push your body hard, you'll be getting muscle size, strength, and if you train hard, you will be getting cardiovascular improvements as well. So don't worry about doing cardio. Now, if you want to do cardio, you can. If you have a competition you're trying to train for, then train for it. If you want to do cardio because you need some steady activity every day to base off your calories from, then yes, you're going to need to do something. I work physical jobs. I'm a firefighter and I clean pools, so I don't add in cardio to do any kind of calorie burning or just basic activity. I don't need that, and I don't need to add that in. I do, however, run a few times a week at the moment because I'm training for a relay race. So I'm practicing running, but I'm not doing cardio. I'm practicing running. The cardio I get is already from weight training really hard. So don't worry about that. But at the end of the day, train all your muscles. I would love to have freaky arms, but I'm afraid I don't have the tissue, right? I don't have the tendons to support insane arms. Either my tendons are too long or there's just not enough tendon to hold that much muscle. I can still look really fit though. I can play the other side and I can be really lean and I can have abs that the big bulky guy is not going to have, or he's not going to be willing to cut down to see that, right? So you got to play the cards you've been dealt. And a lot of bodybuilders and fitness people will give you advice about training, telling you to train your weaknesses and turn them into your strengths. Well, they might not ever turn into your strengths, but if you train your strengths, they get even stronger and your strengths stand out even more. So I think that's something to be said for that. I think you can find joy and you can find some peace of mind training what you like, training what you want, training muscles that are awesome on your physique. And I mean, personally, I train my body head to toe, so there's really no reason that any muscle group should be standing out more than any other, but it still happens because you have outliers, you have weird genetics out there. And so basically the guys who win bodybuilding shows are the guys that have a high level of muscle across their entire body. They don't really have weak areas, right? They have short tendons and long muscle bellies across their entire body. I have a friend who has calves that look like crazy. Like, it's from literally his knee to his ankle is calf muscle. And it's like, how is that possible, bro? Like, my calves sit way up high on my calves, like the muscle. But it's just completely different body. And so you have to work with what your body has. You have to push yourself and compare yourself to yourself. That's literally why I do all my flexing videos at the end of my workouts. It's so I can compare myself to myself. Because I can look back and say, wow, I look way better than I used to. I've gotten way better on these exercises. Like, I'm moving in the right direction. That's what you want. You don't want to compare yourself to freaks because it's going to make you disappointed. And that's not to say not to push yourself or try to be a freak. Do it. Push yourself hard. But if you don't get there, don't fret and don't constantly have anxiety about your exercise selection and your volume and your frequency, because dial it in, train hard, and that's all you can do, bro. That's really it. Like, you can hire a coach, but most of these transformations from coaches are from guys that don't lift at all, right? Or they just don't know how to diet. So I honestly think I've built a little bit of muscle dieting. It sounds kind of weird, but I know it's possible, and I feel like I have done that to some degree. I have increased a little bit of my training volume and frequency just out of the natural progression of my training. So I'm naturally shifting variables, just trying to find what works. And that's kind of what sets me apart from other people, is other people who are huge, they don't have to keep trying to figure out what works, because whatever they're doing is working, right? They're training 6 days a week. They're training, 2 hours a day. It's working. So they don't have to figure anything out. Whereas I need to figure it out because I need it to fit with the rest of my life. I can't be obsessed with the gym and go every single day all day long. I'll be exhausted and I won't be able to be prepared for my 2 jobs, my wife, my 3 boys. So you gotta dial it in as much as you can and make the changes, If you want to cut fat, cut calories, cut food. You got to cut back, right? If you want to build muscle, you got to train hard year round and have maybe some seasons where you eat a little bit more. That's all going to be helpful. So thanks guys so much for watching. Found this video helpful. Please like the video, comment below, and go ahead and share the video with a friend. If you're not subscribed yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any more content. And thanks guys so much for watching.